This is Mel Thompson, and this is a podcast in a series of podcasts about political risk. Today I'm going to be discussing expropriation and market entry issues in Belize. Now, markets that at one time were open and then later closed are an ongoing concern for foreign direct investors and companies. The cost associated with the research and actual insertion of people and product on the ground is in a host nation is considerable. Therefore, the reliability of a political risk analysis as it pertains to market entry and the potential for expropriation is vital. It's very, very vital to know what you're getting into before you start down the road of putting a lot of people and money and time into a project in a host country. A loss can occur under the guise of a legal taking, expropriation, if you will, that is actually a illegal expropriation of a market as opposed to property. Now, by this I mean an entire market could be taken away under some degree of rule, regulation, or law saying that is for the national good, national security, health, education, wealth, whatever it may be. It still comes under the same definition, in my opinion, of an expropriation. Whether or not it's legal or illegal is debatable, but that's still what it can. That's still what it is when it happens out of the blue, and it is not something that is expected through historical information from an analysis, or something that is published on paper within the rules and statutes of that particular host country. Belize has a very recent example of this type of market entry political risk. Now, in 2009, the governor of Belize nationalized electricity markets. 2 years later, in 2011, the telecommunications industry was the target of nationalization. Over this period of time, including up to now, the governor of Belize has failed to compensate the owners and other stakeholders in these industries. In other words, these people were involved. They put their money and time and effort into it. And as expropriation works, as you know, they're supposed to be compensated if something is taken by the government. These people have never been compensated. Now, unlike a clear cut situation of stop before you enter the market, Belize essentially changed the rules of the game in the middle of it. And they changed it for an entire industry, which goes back to my initial point. Expropriation and market entry are tied together when you take into consideration the use of the ability of a government to take over an entire industry for the purpose of protecting the health, welfare, safety, national security of the country. It doesn't matter if that's true or not. They can do it, they will do it, and it looks legal because the definition of expropriation is something that's for the common good, essentially. But in the case of Belize, you have to wonder if it was really for the common good, why haven't these people been compensated? It's all part of a bigger, um, shall we say, a much larger scheme of how these things work. You can't take property and not be compensated under the rule of law. And that's where the problem with Belize comes into play. Because this has happened not in small increments here and there, but by leaps and bounds within certain types of industries, large growing industries. It is something that needs to be considered with a great deal of caution when you look at Belize. What is the next potential industry to be taken over in this manner? No one knows. Now, is Belize a decent place to be a foreign direct investor or a company cutting a deal? Sure, of course it is. But the problem you have to understand is that you need to go into that place with your eyes wide open based upon the history. Now, some industries that can obviously be lucrative or even nationalized in the event of an emergency should come with a certain level of caution on the part of the foreign direct investor and companies. Not because of any illegal or obvious act of a government, but for the simple reason that some industries are more they're more liable to be taken over than others. Not only are certain markets red flags, the beliefs and platforms of political parties and politicians give you a clear indicator of what they're planning to do. When you start looking at the big picture through a political risk analysis, you should look at the politicians who are in power, those who want to be in power, look at their parties, their platforms, the people who are the leaders of those parties, see what they're saying for domestic consumption and what they're saying to people. If they start talking about taking over certain industries or they have a problem with a certain industry, that's a red flag because if these people may get elected. or some people who are there now may be gone. All elections have consequences for good and for bad. If you're a foreign direct investor, you need to understand what is good and bad for you. At all times, you stay out of what is a debate or the discussion of what is good and bad for the people of the host country, because that's really none of your business. But when it comes to your money and your time and your investment, you need to know what's good and bad for you based upon not just a newspaper article, but look deeper into it. A good analysis, a good political risk analysis, looks at not only the rule of law, documents, but also looks at the political players that are in power, that may be in power, and that were in power. And they look at this in a larger historical context. This has been Mel Thompson.